Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grid Live Wrap Up NASCAR Iowa Corn 350. Byron, two-time winner of this year. Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri nearly colliding the closing laps. How Lando held off Oscar. Plus IMSA Chaotic Race at Road America World Rally Championship and Grid Rank. I'm Joe Sandiego. With me, Kobe Lambeth from Grid Tonight, Tanner Smith, editor from the Pit Box Press, and Matthew Bro from Grid Network TV, working on his article recapping the NASCAR race at Iowa. And a big thank you to our Patreon investors, Colin, Michelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew for investing in the Grid Network. You could invest in the Grid Network, link in the video description to take you to our Patreon page. You can also do Buy Me a Coffee, YouTube Super Chat to invest in us. Either way, we'll thank you on the air. And of course, add your name to the leaderboard. And the simplest way to support us, hit the bell icon, thumbs up on our video, and subscribe to us right here on YouTube. And across social media, Grid Network TV and gridnetworktv.com. As I mentioned, I know Matthew waiting from all the quotes and stuff from the NASCAR industry. And let's just jump right into it when it comes to the NASCAR Cup Series. After we had a calm stage one, a couple of cautions in stage two, then multiple cautions in stage three. William Byron, he used fuel strategy, betting that the cautions will help him stretch that fuel out. He made it work, held off Chase Briscoe, who was coming towards the end, but just ran out of time. And Brad Keselowski, one of the fastest cars. In fact, he took the fastest lap award in an eventful race. I'm very surprised that fuel mileage was the winning strategy and that the cautions, at times, it seemed rather lengthy. I know cautions, there has to be the lap for the cars coming in pit road, the lap down cars, shuffle, and then clean up whatever mess we had. Considering we had one caution for debris, a window coming out, and then, of course, the various single car events. We saw this year 12 cautions for 72 laps, compared to last year, 8 cautions for 49 laps. So very close to the same ratio average of 6 laps under each per caution period. Matthew, do the caution flag lengths need to be reviewed, especially on a track like Iowa where the laps are done really quickly?
I think we've all honestly said here that we don't understand why the stage break cautions take so damn long, because there's like no reason if you have a 40 or 50 lap stage, regardless of the size of track, that you run the first 7 to 9 laps under caution. It just does not make any sense at all. Granted, I know there's a lot going on that on track, whether it's officials and stuff clearing stuff up, but like especially on the short track where the laps go by really quickly, and even at Iowa 350 laps, it's like it doesn't seem like a lot, but I mean it seems like a lot, but at the same time it's really not, based on the distance of the track. So it's just one of those things. It's like barely a 300-mile race, a little over, and they're just 72 laps because of caution. And granted, 2 of those stages probably took up at least 10 of those caution laps, you would say. So, yeah, I think it needs to be reviewed. I think that's one thing NASCAR needs to look at the end of the season, is figure out a way to limit the stage, or limit how long the stage break cautions specifically take. Because granted, when you have a big accident, cautions bred cautions over and over and over. After we seemingly had one caution in like the first 169 laps of the race, I think that's when SVG spun out like a natural caution is what I mean. And then from, I think, was it 210 to 280 like laps, they had like the other 9 or 10 cautions of the event. So yeah, they got to figure something out. I think I can't really give advice on how to do it. I don't know if you slow the pace down of the pace laps maybe, but other than that, it's like, what really can you do? So yeah, you can't really tell your cleaner, well, do it faster. Well, I don't know how that works. So they'll figure it out, hopefully. But I think it's definitely something they should consider, especially on short tracks, especially like Iowa, too, where it's like kind of in between a short track and in between like an intermediate. Their race is like an intermediate in some aspects, but it's classified, I guess, as a short track.
Yeah, so
I feel like most of the cautions today lasted way longer than they should have, and if they came out at all, some of them just needed to be kept in the flag stand. The one I'm thinking of in particular is the one that came out right before the Todd Gilliland caution, which ended up being the final one of the day, where Ty Dillon spun out coming out of turn 4. And I use spun out very liberally here because by the time the yellow had come out, he was already driving straight on the grass towards turn 1. He was in good shape. Not only that, we had from lap 170 to lap 282, we had 11 cautions. Sorry. One of the 2 stage cautions in particular are what stand out to me, though. We have 2 9-lap cautions for nothing. For nothing. We spent 18 laps under caution for genuinely no reason other than we have to throw the yellow here because we arbitrarily set the rule up to do it. And then we last longer than cautions for cause. Like the first SVG incident where he made rear contact with the wall, probably dumped some debris high in the groove in turns 1 and 2, 6 laps. 51 spins out on the front stretch, no damage, 5 laps. Ty Dillon backs it into the fence after contact with Todd Gilliland after that. 5 laps. Again, rear contact made to the wall, probably putting some debris down. 5 laps. Denny Hamlin spins all, without touching anything right after the second stage ends. 6 laps under yellow. Don't know why. No debris or anything to speak of. Zane Smith and Carson Hocevar's incident. 6 laps, but again, some debris involved. There was also the Eric Jones and Chase Briscoe incident. Again, not really much contact, not much room for debris to fall off on any of these cars. 6 laps, 7 laps for the 19, 20, and 45 getting into an incident. Again, no significant damage done in the accident to dump debris on the track. Why are we down 7 laps that we could be having under green? The rest of them were 5 after that, but again, a debris caution. Why are you 5 laps? You just picked up a window that was supposed to be in a car, and you could have just gone back to green, like literally the very next lap. Like, I don't really understand why we spend so much time under yellow. Like, obviously, hats off to William Byron and the 24 team, but good Lord, like, what is it going to take for NASCAR to wake up and see that they're spending way too much time under yellow that is completely wasted? Like, obviously, had William Byron not gotten literally every single one of those caution laps, he might have been in a bit more of a difficult situation because it seemed like he barely even got to do a burnout before his car ran out of fuel. But at the end of the day, like, I would rather see green flag racing. I think everybody here on this broadcast can agree with that. And it just seems really silly to me that we're spending 18 laps under caution for genuinely no reason, and then additional times under caution for stuff that probably shouldn't have even been a yellow. And we're spending so much time of it just coasting behind the pace car. I don't really understand it. Like, I feel like at Dover, we really don't have as many of these issues, and it's a slightly larger track. So I'm just really confused why this keeps happening with NASCAR Cup Series races. Obviously, you want to have the stage cautions to probably trim off some commercial time during green flag racing. Totally get that. But does it need to be 9 laps? At a track that's less than a mile long, does it really need to be 9 laps? I don't think so.
You bring up a really good point about especially the window. I feel that could be something if NASCAR, we've seen it they done before, what they call quickie yellow, where everyone has one opportunity to come in pit road, lap down, lead lap cars, come in, make a pit stop. Is it going to be a quick caution flag? I would like to see that be utilized more, especially in the case of the window flying out. And okay, you know where that piece of debris is. You just need to gather everyone up so that you can have the safety crew pick up the debris, come back in, okay, re-rack them. I would say no more than 4 laps and we'll be racing again. Just be great where if NASCAR could get to that point, and I think maybe they should look into maybe some sort of rule where they were saying, hey, debris cautions, we're going to implement a shorter caution period where we won't open pit road. It should be less than 5 laps guaranteed, and we'll be back racing again. But of course, you have multiple bigger debris field, then NASCAR could just announce this is not a quick caution or quickie yellow. This will be a full length. I just think that'll go a long way, especially we want more racing. Too many laps behind this safety car. We're not racing, folks. We're just parading around. We got to do something. So I'd love to see an improvement there. This race, of course, it's Iowa's only race. So I feel like, as much racing as you could get on their lone date. It's great because they, again, had a packed house. Great crowd. 10 lead changes. That's down from 17 last year. As I mentioned earlier, the number of cautions, more cautions this year. With the fewer lead changes, 7 fewer lead changes, plus last year we were racing in June and we were under the lights, nighttime cooler temperatures. Here we are, midday, it's sunny, hot, much warmer. Tanner, did the conditions play a role in the track product from a year ago? Or were there other factors, like, for example, the car, which we know has always been a center of discussion?
I think it's a combination of things. I think the lack of lead changes kind of coincides more with the fact that we never really got a complete green flag pit cycle in. It seemed like half of the cars pitted at some point before that first SVG caution that happened around 90 laps into the fuel run going into stage 2. And from there, we kind of just traded off cautions for practically the next 120 laps, which is unfortunate, but that's the race we had. With that said, I also feel that because we didn't get those green flag pit stops, obviously you're not going to see as many people filtering in and out of the front. You're not going to see people, try to extend long and try to, grab the lead that way and hope for another lucky caution. For a lot of folks, that just never came. In addition to that, I do think racing at daytime definitely had some form of an effect on this race. I definitely feel like the track, especially on the newer pavement, lacked grip at times, especially if you tried entering shallow on the bottom. We saw multiple incidents develop in the entries of turn 1 and turn 3. And I feel like part of that had to do with it being a slightly warmer condition compared to last year, along with the brand new tire that was brought to Iowa to deal with the kind of half and half pave job that they did there. In addition to that, though, I think something that was even more critical to how the racing product turned out today outside of the car, because I do think that the only reason William Byron was able to coast at like 40% throttle for the last 5 laps of the race and win is because the car is bad in dirty air. And because of NASCAR's repaving job, it's really hard to get a run on somebody when they can practically cover both lanes in one turn by either entering shallow and then coasting up in the middle on exit, or by doing the exact opposite where you enter in high and then dive down low as the corner progresses. Now, one other thing that I think is extremely critical to what made this race play out the way that it did has more to do with the fact that we're a lot closer to the playoffs and there are still 3 open grid slots for someone that's opportunistic to get in there and make some noise. I mean, we saw John Hunter Nemechek be extremely aggressive throughout the day. Did not quite work out for him later in the race as the guy that he may have ruined the day of, and Bubba Wallace was able to, because of the massive rash of cautions, was able to get back on the lead lap, and on the final restart went from 32nd to 6th and Nemechek ended up fading back to 15th by the end of the race. So I do think that, given everything here, we have, a lack of variety in fuel strategies that was able to actually shake up the front of the field, along with the race taking place in the daytime on a brand new tire, the kind of shoddy repave job that NASCAR did on this track last year that's still not exactly where you'd really love it to be as far as like creating a compelling racing product. And on top of that, the car and the proximity to the playoffs. You saw the race you saw today, which was at times very good, but at other times left you kind of scratching your head like, why are we doing this? Why are we throwing cautions every 3 seconds, every 2 laps, because somebody gets kind of bent out of shape and doesn't actually crash? So it's definitely a bit of a mixed bag coming out of this corn weekend here at Iowa, but at the same time, I still really enjoy this track and hope that they can get a full repave in and give this track the real barn burner that it deserves.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, I agree with that 100%. There were so many different factors that caused this race to be the way it was. And I think the conditions, without a doubt, played a role in what we saw. And a lot of it had to do with, I think, daytime versus nighttime. And it is so funny that Ryan Blaney, obviously, at the time led a career high. I think it was 201 laps last year, and there were less lead changes this time around than there were that. And I think a lot of it is if you look at the results, you can actually go to gridnetworktv.com and find the story I did last year when Ryan Blaney dominated this race. 5 of the guys who led at least 1 lap in that race only led 1 time for less than 7 laps, which I can't recall, but I don't know if it was during a green flag cycle or whatnot. But that kind of shows it was a lot different this time around. But like Tanner said as well, it was interesting because the car is a big problem, and it seemed like when you were up front, you couldn't get around people. But then you wondered with someone like Bubba Wallace, too, went from 32nd to 6th after breaking a toe link and going 2 laps down. So I don't know if most of the cars were saving fuel when he had enough, so he kind of cruised by. I have no idea what happened there. But it was one of those things where it shows you could pass, but it seemed like at the end, especially with the leaders and everyone saving, Byron, Briscoe, Keselowski, I think if there were 15 more laps, I think Blaney could have probably gone back-to-back because he was moving through the field and he was going to catch those guys. But when he got to him, he stalled out. So it's just a product of the car, like Tanner said. You can make the car seemingly 3 to 4 lanes wide with dirty air. And that's what once Byron got ahead of, I think it was SVG and Cody Ware, and he just coasted back. It was like, I didn't think Briscoe, they could have went on, if Byron still had the fuel, could have went on another 10 laps, I think, before even Briscoe, Keselowski, or Blaney could have even gotten around the 2 lapped guys to get to Byron, to get around him. So I think definitely the daytime, it being warmer and not under the lights, definitely played a factor. I'm not sure if they had a new tire. Wasn't there a discussion about a potential new tire for this track that hadn't been run, or not the same one, unless that was last week?
It was a new tire. Briscoe, I think Byron, and a Ford driver all tested it out. So, yeah.
Yeah, it seems like they might have had a little bit of advantage, right? Not really, but it's funny how that worked out with Briscoe and them too. But yeah, I don't know if Briscoe had it to get to Byron, even though Byron was at like 40% throttle towards the end of the race. But yeah, Blaney, I truly believe if it went probably 15 more laps, I think Blaney, if he could get around Keselowski and he could have gotten around Briscoe, he would have gotten around Byron. So yeah, that's how it went. I think the car is definitely the biggest thing here. And it's so weird that I can't think of the correct terminology to describe the car in a sense how it acts, but you never really know if you're going to get a highlight reel, million views on YouTube race, or if you're going to get an absolute crap show that nobody's going to watch the replay for. And it really, now you can tell, it used to be the intermediates were all great, but at the same time now you're looking at it, it's like some of them are just not good, and then some are great, and then short tracks, I feel like some come out really well, and then other times you have just just meh races. Like, it's something you watch, you're like, okay, and then you move on with your day. It's not something you continue to talk about. So, yeah, that's kind of my long ramble.
It's one of those deals where, especially for Iowa, Gateway, all the tracks that have a single race date, Richmond, I mean, went from 2 to 1. I think it's worth it where if they could make adjustments to these cars, produce as much green flag racing as possible, look at ways to shorten yellow flag periods. It's just better for the fans, better experience. Well, I mean, everybody wants to see more race more than anything. It's just one of those deals where, again, I know scheduling, what's on TV, what's not on TV. I don't know if it played a role at all, but of course, last night was supposedly going to be the Speedway Classic. I don't know if maybe they didn't want Iowa to be Saturday night, same time as the baseball game at Bristol Motor Speedway. Ended up, I believe, the two were on the same day today due to rain. I think Iowa, if they could repave that, make it a nighttime race. We know sometimes how repave jobs can make chaotic races. That could be a really great hot ticket to get and really grow the fan base more and more in that part of the country. The playoff picture remains mostly unchanged, and the results are official, so no changes occurring. But William Byron, now two-time winner, so he moves up a little bit ahead of all the drivers with just one win. Reddick, Bowman, and Buescher are still 14th, 15th, 16th. Buescher's in by 3 overall. When it comes to Priest, Kyle Busch, Ty Gibbs, and AJ Allmendinger, there are 17th through 20th. Brad Keselowski, he is 21st now. He is putting together some runs together. He is putting together some speed. Where he was a few races ago, and we thought he's going to miss it. He's nowhere in it. He's coming alive. You had Ryan Preece, a strong day today. Chris Buescher holding on to 16th place. All of a sudden, it looks like all three Roush, Fenwick, Keselowski drivers could potentially be in the playoffs. But I got to ask you, Matt, is this a little too late for RFK? Because really, there's only those 3 spots to get in by wins, and we're coming down to 3 races remaining.
Yeah, first off, I want to apologize to Brad Keselowski. I am familiar with his game, but I know last week I insinuated something that maybe it's time for him to stop. My bad, bro. My bad, because he clearly has proved he still has it. And once they figure it out, he's really on the ball. And I think he's got, like 2 top 5s in a row now, and it's like 3 top 10s or something. Like, he's been really doing a lot better. But yes, Joe, it is a little too late in the sense where if Tyler Reddick misses the playoffs, it's a complete, it'd be a miracle if he somehow doesn't do it, considering I'm looking at my phone, 122 points above the cut line. That's over 2 full races, or 2 full races if you win with the Xfinity fastest lap. So Reddick's just got to pray if SVG wins, he's going to be locked in. If he wins at Watkins Glen, he's just going to be locked in, or anyone really that's already been in. But for Keselowski too, I know Buescher had that. I think it was a 30-point penalty too, so that gap would be even larger. And I think that can really come to bite him, for lack of a better term, considering he's on the cut line. And if Preece continues to deliver, it's going to be hard. And it could possibly end up, guys, where not if there's 2 different winners and they're not Chris Buescher or Ryan Preece, it could very well be actually 1 different winner, to be honest with you. If somebody like Kyle Busch, Ty Gibbs, AJ Allmendinger at Watkins Glen, they come out of nowhere and get a win, all of RFK might miss the playoffs. And that's actually absurd to think about. And I think most of the guys who have won this year are deserving in the sense of a playoff spot. But then you have those 3 spots. I think Reddick deserves a spot just because he's in the regular season in the top 6 in the standings. Alex Bowman's in the top 10 in the standings. He's done well. And then you have the cut line as Buescher and Preece. And it's like, if you're RFK, which guy would you rather have in the playoffs of those guys? And I think it would be Buescher, because Buescher is a legitimate threat who can get hot and make the round of 8. by just with the way the schedule works out. But then if you get Priest in there with a lack of playoff experience, you don't know how that's going to happen. And then if you get Brad in there, who has been significantly worse than the other two this season, then you kind of put your two best drivers this season, right, with Priest and Buescher, out of the playoffs so the boss man can get in, who is well over 100-something points back. I think it's going to be chaotic these next couple of races. I definitely think RFK can come out. I think Buescher can win Watkins Glen. I think Keselowski or Priest could win at Daytona. And even as at Richmond, I think Keselowski could win there too. So it's one of those things where we very well could see all three of these cars win the next three races, without a doubt. But at the same time, I truly think we're more likely to see none of these guys make it than more than one of them, if that makes sense.
Matthew kind of stole my thunder there a little bit, because I was actually going to say I think that all three of them could win any of the next 3 weeks. I mean, you've got, obviously, Buescher has defined success at Watkins Glen, obviously being the defending winner of that event. Brad Keselowski has had some success there in the past, but since the next gen era has come about, he has just been putrid, and that's being light about it at road courses. Ryan Preece has shown some promise this year on road courses, surprisingly enough. Just hasn't really translated them into a whole lot of amazing results by any stretch just yet. But going up north around his home state of Connecticut and Watkins Glen being in New York, it's kind of a Martin Truex Jr. deal, where anything in the Northeast, anything in the New England area, that's pretty much a home track for him. So I think that he'll be inspired, especially after this performance this week that definitely looked like it wasn't really going anywhere for the first stage and a half of the event. Got that lucky SVG caution, and it propelled him to a top 5 finish. And I think he'll be riding those consecutive top 5 finishes into a home racetrack for him, so to speak. And I think that based on some of the road course pace he's shown throughout the year, he might have a shot to contend next week as a bit more of a dark horse candidate. As far as Richmond's concerned, I think all three cars are going to be stout there, and it would be kind of shocking to see them not contend, especially after they ran so well at Phoenix earlier this year with the option tire being something that they had to play with. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we are taking on that experiment at Richmond again this year. So could be a lot of opportunity there for them. And obviously at Daytona, where it's really anyone's guess who's going to come out on top, they have all three had pretty solid success there in the past. That gives me confidence to say that at least one of them is going to make it into the postseason. But at the same time, next week, I mean, everybody knows who's on top and who's going to be the person that everybody's going to have to aim for. Obviously, I'm talking about Shane Van Gisbergen, who ultimately ended up tossing one away there last year on the last lap. But I don't think he'll make that same mistake twice if I had to take a guess. Obviously, at Richmond, you've got people like Christopher Bell, Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, maybe even Kyle Busch and Austin Dillon, if they can continue their somewhat modest approach from today. And then Daytona, as I said, is anybody's game. So definitely expect at least one RFK car to make the playoffs. But at least for Brad, it's definitely a little bit too little too late.
It's going to be interesting just to see what Brad Keselowski do, 101 points away from 16th. He's going to need some luck to go his way to make that gap. Really must-win situation. It's going to be a lot of fun to see what will happen with the next few races. Watkins Glen, like you said, I think everyone's anticipating the Shane Van Gisbergen show. Of course, anytime bad luck could occur, if for some reason SVG, bad pit stop, or something goes wrong, a lot of people are going to try to pounce on that opportunity, get a win. That said, we'll wrap up our NASCAR coverage. Matthew, I know you got a busy night, so before you go, what is your shining moment?
Oh, goodness, Joe. There's so many I can honestly think of, right? just going through all the sports when you think about it, one I wanted to definitely shine light on would be a World Rally Championship and Rovin Pera getting stage, not only winning, but getting stage win 250, which is quite impressive nonetheless there. And then there's so many. I just like you want to like. I know you guys are going to touch on all these events, so I guess it's a little bit of a preview. Formula One, I know McLaren. I think that's a huge shining moment, being I believe the second team ever to reach 200 Grand Prix victories, and then their two current drivers have 17 of them. I think Lando has 9 now. Oscar has 8. That's pretty cool considering just a few years ago both of them had 0 victories. And then you look at NASCAR, and it's like you can go so many different ways, right? In that sense, too. You can say, well, yeah, William Byron coming off a summer slump, which he usually has, and Tanner and I, and even you, Joe, we all were mentioning it during the past couple weeks. It's like Byron's been so dang good early on in every season, which I believe he was the grid ranking, the NASCAR grid rating champion, I believe, last season, because of how great and consistent he was. And even when he falls off, he continues to be great, too. And it's just so funny with William Byron as well. He retook the points lead. So that's worthy of a one shining moment, having a terrible stretch and still managing to come out and pretty much, I'm not going to say dominating fashion, but it really was a dominant victory where he led almost half the race. That's a pretty impressive stat for me. So I think if you look at all of them, I'd say William Byron for NASCAR. I would say Formula One McLaren, pretty awesome World Rally Championship. I would go with Rovin Pera. I think that was impressive. IMSA, I'll let you guys decide on that one. But yeah, those are kind of my 77 shining moments in that sense. But yeah, busy night ahead if you guys have Flow Racing. The Cars Tour, gosh forbid it finally stops raining in North Carolina. So I think they uncovered the car. So I got to work that event. So I'm going to be on social media. A couple of my guys in that event, cheering them on. But yeah, fun race weekend as always. Appreciate you guys here, Grid Network, for letting me come. I'm still behind the keyboard, right? This time it's my voice though and not my text. So those are my shining moments. And yeah, thank you guys for having me. Sorry I missed the pre-race show. And let's it won't be me, but let's continue to talk. I know Formula One might be next, right?
Yeah, Formula One, lots to say, and I'll throw it to Tanner.
Indeed, lots to say. Indeed, Matthew, thank you again. Moving over to the Hungarian Grand Prix, a race of track position, it seemed. Passing came at a premium, and strategy became the big focus. That, and the winning move for Lando Norris, making a one-stop strategy work, even on, I believe, a 39-lap stint on the set of hard tires. Nobody else was able to execute it to perfection as Norris held off a hard-charging Oscar Piastri. Both of them capitalized on Charles Leclerc's misfortune, the lone Ferrari up front, who fell to fourth after what has been deemed a suspension issue. So now, just 9 points separate the two McLaren drivers. So, Kobe, I'm going to start with you. Do you believe Oscar Piastri would have gotten around Norris for the lead if we had just 2 or 3 more laps?
Well, Tanner, with the pace Oscar Piastri had, I believe if it was just a few more laps, he could have potentially gotten there. But as we saw today, that was almost a repeat of Canada, just with a different driver. Because Oscar, he tried to make the overtake on Lando, and thankfully, he checked up just in time before damaging the front wing of the car, like Lando ended up doing on Oscar in Canada. So thankfully, we avoided deja vu there. But I really thought they were going to hit there. But kudos to Oscar, for minimizing what possible damage that could have come out from that. But yeah, he was really flying there at the end. And kudos to Lando Norris, because I'll be honest with you, I didn't think he had it in him today. Especially, he got off the grid well, and then lost a couple of positions at the start, and then he just started to slowly and methodically work his way up. And the one-stop strategy, worked out really well for him today. I didn't think he was going to be able to pull this off, and more power to him and that McLaren team for running the strategy that they were running, but given, how old the tires he was on, and the tires that Piastri was on, I really thought, fresh tires was going to win out in the end. But for Lando, he was able to execute this race completely flawlessly, and get another Formula One victory as we head into the F1 summer break with a slim points margin between the McLaren drivers. Really looking forward to the second half of the F1 season because it's going to be a good championship battle between Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. We'll see which McLaren man is the best.
It is going to be a battle of the two McLaren drivers coming down to the championship. One of the big things I was thinking about a lot when this race was going on was, could Lando Norris make it work on those older tires? What a drive by him and that team. Granted, it sort of came a little bit because of what happened on the start of the race, dropping back to 5th place. I thought, okay, good luck. It's such a hard track to pass. I mean, we saw it all race long. Using that pit strategy, I mean, we've seen in this track before where Lewis Hamilton has gotten around Max Verstappen because of the difference of older tires versus newer tires. I thought we were going to see that with Oscar Piastri, but I think Oscar Piastri drove a really smart race. Big picture, don't want to do anything foolish. Locking up, he said post-race, he was just trying his hardest, and he just got to the limit a little too much. Thankfully, did not cause a collision because, like you said, Cody, that would have been bad news for the Papaya team. Overall, I think the Papaya team has to be feeling pretty good entering the summer break. They're the top team. I mean, really, you got to look quite far back to Ferrari, Mercedes. Red Bull's not a contender at all. With what, I believe 11 or 10 races after the summer break, I think they got to feel pretty good. They can start wrapping everything up with the Constructors and then the Drivers' Championship. May the best driver win.
Indeed, it does seem like as the season is drawing to a bit more of a close than, say, back in May, it looks like the two McLaren drivers are pulling away with the title, leaving everybody in their wake. One of those people, that was a bit more of a literal term for them, in Charles Leclerc. A frustrating race for today's pole sitter. The lone Ferrari up front was outnumbered by the two McLarens, and the Mercedes of George Russell also got around him for third. His teammate, Lewis Hamilton, unfortunately was nowhere near the front and finished 12th after a very, very miserable weekend that started in qualifying, where he said every time, twice on the radio, and later clarified that nothing exactly is wrong with Ferrari's car or the team itself, but he did suggest that he, the driver, should probably be replaced. Before the race weekend, Hamilton spoke about the much-needed summer break coming up, where he expects tears to flow. Joe, kicking this over to you, is this a major red flag that the move to Ferrari is not working out for Hamilton?
I would say more a caution flag rather than a red flag right now, because we have seen some good results for Lewis Hamilton. I mean, he has gotten into the points. He did get that sprint win. Unfortunately, the next race, the Grand Prix, disqualified. So it's not a red flag in the sense where a case where he is just not getting points on a consistent basis, not performing to expectation. I feel you have to have, whether it's a rookie or a new driver in a new team, in a car that's not exactly built to your specs, you're going to have some struggle here and there. When it comes to Lewis Hamilton, I know he puts a lot of pressure on himself. He wants to do really good. He wants to prove this was a smart move for him, a smart move by Ferrari to hire him. I really feel he wants to show what he can do, and he's feeling like he's letting down a lot of people, and that's an internal pressure he's putting on himself. If he could go out there and just take this break, keep working on making the car better and better, because I think that's the key. He might feel like the car is getting away from him, more towards Charles Leclerc's liking. They got to work on fixing that, make sure that doesn't happen, because at the end of the day, this is not a rookie. This is the 7-time world champion. He has to go out there, win, prove to everyone he can go out there, still race, still be competitive. A win will be the easiest way to do it, but honestly, if he could be back in the points again, that first race, then a second race, I think people will see, okay, he's going up to where he needs to be. But today, I think it probably really stung, because we said this before with Red Bull, when Verstappen be up front and his teammate was nowhere around. Sergio Perez, where is he? He's allowing Verstappen to be vulnerable. That's what happened to Charles Leclerc today, and I think that probably stung Lewis because we've talked about that in Bottas before with him, and now it was him leaving Leclerc out.
Yeah, I'll be honest, guys. I was really surprised to see these comments before the cars even hit the track. That Lewis is talking about how he needs his summer break because he expects tears to flow. I'm thinking, like, what on earth has been going on behind the scenes with Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari, where he feels the need to say, "But like, I think tears are going to flow," and then it ends up, not making the Q3 in qualifying. Then he's like, every time, and such a dejected voice on the radio. And when he was asked to expand upon that, then that's when he was basically saying, like, what he meant by every time, be like, it's me, the driver, it's not the car, it's not the team, like whatever strategy they're doing, that is me, not getting the job done, and reaching the same level that Charles Leclerc is in this car. And I think, this is an entirely new thing that Lewis is going through right now, because he's always been the guy. He's always been the number one driver on a team. But right now, he's clearly the number two, and he's struggling to get the maximum out of this car. And yeah, I guess you can say, since Charles Leclerc has been there the longest, that the car is, going to be suited to his liking, and Lewis is, has to do the best that he can to adapt to this car. And I would really hate to see Ferrari break him the same way that it broke Sebastian Vettel, quite a few years back when he left Red Bull for Ferrari. And then, the Ferrari partnership with Vettel didn't really work out as well as we expected it would. And I know it's this year one, with Lewis and Ferrari. I'm hopeful that this partnership can work out in some way or some form, but, just hasn't really gone his way so far. But I do think that this summer break is coming at a good time for him, where he can just, take a few weeks off, reset mentally, and get back at it when we get to the Dutch Grand Prix on the very last day of August. I know it's really tough seeing seeing a driver like Lewis Hamilton going through struggles like this. But I'm confident, he still has a lot left in the tank. I'm sure at 40 years old, he probably has wondered, in his mind, like, am I washed up? Like, do I still have what it takes to go out there and compete with some of the best drivers in the world at the pinnacle of motorsports? Honestly, I think in regards of Lewis, being washed up or anything like that, it's really hard to tell, with the way things are in Formula One. I know towards the end of his Mercedes tenure, you started to see him slipping in performance, but I guess you could argue that it has something to do with the car as well, because Mercedes car, during his later years at the team, was not that great. And then Ferrari, sometimes they show up like they did in qualifying with Charles Leclerc taking the pole, and other times, they did not show up at all. But more times than not this year, it's been Charles Leclerc ahead of Lewis Hamilton. And for him to come into this weekend defeated, and then to feel it and defeated in qualifying, I'm sure not finishing in the points in the Grand Prix didn't help as well. I really think that he should definitely do some self-reflecting and try to get in a more positive mindset when to come back for the second half of the Formula One season.
Yeah, Kobe, I really couldn't agree more. I think you touched on this a little bit, but I think it's important for Lewis going into this large 4-week break that he remembers that this is his first season with this team, and this car has been geared towards Charles Leclerc since at least 2020, if not earlier than that, which is why Vettel kind of fell off a little bit earlier than we were all really expecting. So it's not really out of the realm for him to be struggling based on the fact that the car, he didn't really have a full off season to help craft it around him even a little bit. So he's having to adjust to what Charles Leclerc likes more so than, what Lewis is normally used to, where everybody has to accommodate to him because he's just so much faster than everybody else. So I hope that during this summer break, Lewis Hamilton can kind of regroup and, get everything back going the right way, especially with Monza coming up not long after the break. Ferrari is always strong there and always want to put in a good performance. So the Zillionaires here left us a nice comment telling us that it was a great race. Scott Lynch says they just uncovered the cars. I'm assuming that's talking about for the cars store in Hickory.
Yeah, it just went green.
Hey, finally. Great work, everybody. Speaking of great work, we have, with just a few weeks left, or with a few weeks off here, It's probably a good opportunity for Red Bull, much like Lewis Hamilton, as we just discussed, to regroup as well. Max Verstappen, the four-time defending world champion, finished ninth behind a Sauber, a Racing Bull, and both Aston Martins. Not a banner day for the energy drink company. Verstappen seemed very unimpressed with the team on the radio and really just couldn't make anything happen. Yuki Tsunoda, another weekend of him just being absolutely nowhere to be found, finished 17th. As I've been saying for practically this entire season, the Red Bull can't pass cars, and again today, they weren't able to do anything in the race. Laurent Mekies, the new team principal, had his second race weekend in his new role. So, Kobe, I'm going to kick this one back over to you. Is this the result of what has been building all season long with a hard-to-handle car that isn't getting better, or the pain of new leadership and no chemistry at Red Bull Racing?
Well, I think that this is really, a mix of everything. So it's just multiple factors all coming together. Yeah, we know that this is a car, that is tailored to Max Verstappen's driving style. And that, even though Max has, done some impressive things with this car this year, he hasn't been able to solve every issues. I know, we always like to joke that he's been like driving a tractor. And that's really what it seems like today, because always plowing out there and not able to do anything with it. And we saw that today. If Max Verstappen cannot even drag this car through the field in Hungary, what does it really say about what you're doing right now? And, Yuki Tsunoda, there's not really much to say about him, unfortunately. He's basically just out there riding around. He's not truly racing because he's just having a really, really horrible run in Red Bull. And it was interesting reading a quote this weekend from Red Bull saying that despite, Yuki not really performing well in this car, that they don't really have an appetite to make another mid-season driver change. So I guess they're going to see him out through the end of the year. But like I've said before, what we've seen with Yuki in Red Bull, I don't think they see him at all. Obviously, it's more so the car than him, because if you put him back in that Racing Bull car, he would probably get some really good results, probably matching Liam Lawson and Isaac Hadjar in performance over there. Just unfortunate for Yuki's part. But yeah, when you have a car, that's not good at all, and then you have new leadership come in this late in the season, and then you try to, build chemistry, and Mekies is going to try to, put his stamp on things. It's just going to take time to build that. I really think the rest of this season for Red Bull is going to be just building towards next year. Next year is going to be a huge year for F1. 2026 got the new regulations coming in, got some new manufacturers, the Red Bull's going to be ditching their current engine, and they're going to be switching over to Ford power. So that's another thing that they're going to have to factor in. So I really think 2025 is always going to be disappointing to Red Bull for many reasons, but the focus has to really start shifting towards 2026 soon.
2026 is going to be a very big year, I think, for Red Bull to prove that under the new leadership, they could make a competitive car and prove Max Verstappen made the right choice in staying with the team. This is just one of those deals where I think Red Bull, as has been said before, they were just sort of not listening, not thinking that the car was that big of a deal. And sure enough, it is really buying them. You look at what happened to essentially Yuki Tsunoda. Nothing this weekend again. Poor qualifying, poor race. Really just thought that he's going to finish out the season, not because, he's performing, but just because do we really want to put Isaac Hadjar or bring back Liam Lawson? I mean, I think they are seeing how people are very critical when they do these driver changes, and they just know there'll be a lot of that criticism if they did that again. For the team overall, this summer break, they could work on just getting some of that chemistry built up so that way they're a little stronger. That'll be a great start. But I think really it's just now just damage control. Try to stay competitive. I mean, you guys have a situation where you have one, if not the best driver right now in Max Verstappen. He's still capable of going out there, getting good performances. But he has such a car to where if he can't make it in qualifying, like at the Hungarian ring, and granted qualifying there was this threat of rain, it wasn't exactly straightforward, still 8th place on the grid, finished in 9th place. This was just not a good weekend, unlike one we've seen from Red Bull in such a long time with Max Verstappen. You could lose your top driver, and Max Verstappen's gone. I think, like a lot of folks have said, that's a mid-level car, mid-pack car. It could be a while before they're up towards the front again.
Back markers.
Back marker, yes.
Yeah, it could be very interesting to see Verstappen end up leaving the seat and seeing what ends up being left behind for Red Bull to pick after the season. If something happens with Max Verstappen and his clause that allows him to leave or whatever. We've seen drivers break contracts before, so it wouldn't be anything completely out of the ordinary. But at the end of the day, Lando Norris was your victor today. Red Bull seems like their domination is a bit of a thing of the past, and everybody is going to be getting a nice 4-week break as the Formula One series goes into its summer break that ends on August 31st when the season resumes at Max Verstappen's home racetrack at Zandvoort for the Dutch Grand Prix. Moving over to IMSA, which is in my neck of the woods in Wisconsin. In the first race since BMW announced that they were parting ways with Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan Racing at the end of the 2025 IMSA season, BMW RLL pulled a rabbit out of its hat. The numbers 24 and 25 BMWs pitted with around 1 hour to go before a full course caution came out for Ricky Taylor stalling after getting spun by Nick Tandy. While the other GTPs pitted under yellow, both BMWs stayed out to inherit the lead. Late in the race, though, Philip Ing and Marco Whitman had an intense battle for the lead between teammates in GT traffic allowed the pole-winning number 93 Meyershank Racing Acura of Renger van de Zanda to get into the picture. But the number 24 BMW of Ing and Dries Van Thor held on to win Road America in a 1-2 finish for BMW M Team RLL, with the number 25 BMW of Whitman and Sheldon van der Linde finishing second. Kobe, was this win perfect timing for that BMW team?
Well, I think that this was not just perfect timing for BMW. I think this was also perfect timing for Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan, for all parties involved on and off the track, starting with the timing of caution. Today that was perfect because they just made their pit stop. And then, the others come in and the track position was really all they needed there at the end to, just stay up front. And BMW still have a fast enough car, although it didn't seem like, they had the car with the outright pace. Once they had that clean air, they were basically good to go towards the end. As they were getting through those GT cars towards the end of the race, I was a little concerned for them. I thought, Renger van de Zanda and that Acura is going to catch them because it seemed like the Acura had a better pace than the BMW there. But, BMW was able to, stretch it out right there. I know Philip Ing was happy that his teammate Marco Whitman basically played wingman towards the end of that, because once they cleared the GT cars, Ing was able to skate down the road, and then you saw Whitman, driving defensively to keep Van de Zanda behind and try to protect his teammate, from potentially losing the lead to the Acura. So I thought the teamwork there was great, and also this was a statement, for RLL, who is on the hunt for a new program potentially in sports car racing. And they can show, despite the split coming up between them and BMW after being together for so many years, that they still know how to win. That if you give them, that if you join forces with them in a partnership, regardless of what sports car class it is, that they can still get the job done. I just think it's really funny how, once you announce, that we're divorcing, then all of a sudden you find success the very next race. You really can't make that up, right? But all in all, a great effort today by BMW Team RLO to get a 1-2 finish at Road America. I thought they did a great job taking advantage of the caution and having enough speed, to keep it up there. And it was also nice to see BMW put out a statement, in the days leading up to this race, saying that they remain committed to IMSA, GTP class into the future, which is a welcome sight, because some people, been concerned that they might decide, to either withdraw and focus on this World Endurance Championship program or just run the Michelin Endurance Cup races, and then for the full season, won't see any other BMWs. But really nice to see that BMW put out a statement saying that they're committed to this GTP class. It'll just be with a different team next year, which is rumored to be his World Endurance Championship team, Team WRT.
an interesting, silly season in IMSA is definitely still brewing, but let's look forward to the title fight here for the GTP class as the number 7 Porsche Penske Motorsport prototype took a big hit in the points standings today as Nick Tandy received a stop and hold plus 60 penalty for causing Ricky Taylor to spin and then subsequently stall. As a result, the number 6 Porsche of Matthew Jaminet and Matt Campbell now lead the championship by 75 points over Tandy and Felipe Nasr. So even with a bad day for the number 7, it seems like Penske still came out mostly perfect from the weekend. Now, looking at the other class winners, the number 99 AO Racing prototype won LMP2 with the Spike the Dragon livery with Dane Cameron and PJ Hyatt. In GTD Pro, the number 1 Paul Miller Racing BMW of Neil Verhagen and Madison Snow were victorious as the number 021 Triarci Competizione Ferrari of Kenton Cook and Onofrio Triarci won GTD. IMSA returns to action on August 24th for the GT-only race at Virginia International Raceway. Kobe, throwing it over to you for some World Rally Championship.
Yeah, that's right. And this weekend, Rally Finland, it was the hometown guy winning his home rally. Kalle Rovanperä, led a Toyota sweep of the top 3 positions at Rally Finland with an average speed of 129.95 kilometers per hour, which was the fastest WRC rally in history. So they were really flying in Finland. This weekend, Elfyn Evans finished 4th and not Tonic, down in 10, not the weekend he was looking for. And this put Elfyn Evans back into the points lead with Rovanperä 3 points behind in second. Sebastian Ogier and Tonic are tied with 163 points, 13 points behind. And Ogier has more wins this year. And the next round is Rally Portugal in late August on Labor Day weekend. And now, Joe, let's take a look at that grid ranking.
Grid ranking week 18. Here is the top 10. Not a whole lot of changes. The big one, though, Lando Norris got around Denny Hamlin. And Elfyn Evans is back in the top 10 after the World Rally Championship race. When you look outside the top 10, that's where you'll find a couple of things. Oik Tonic dropping down to 12. All the drivers in red, they are not eligible for the Grid Ranking World Championship. Of course, IndyCar, they were off this weekend, so score remains unchanged for all IndyCar drivers, including Alex Palou, who has been leading the grid ranking since week 1, trying to become the second person to go back-to-back in leading the first weekend all the way through the second weekend. Max Verstappen, the only one to do that. And speak about Max Verstappen, look where he is, 21st. This is the first time ever Max Verstappen, while in the grid ranking, is not in the top 20. Now, as we mentioned, we know he was the 2023 grid ranking world champion, led every single weekend. We know he's been very good with that Red Bull team in the past. They've given him good cars, and he's been able to maximize it when his teammates couldn't. But Tanner, we know the deal apparently between Max Verstappen and Red Bull for 2026. Supposedly they have a contract. But this week was the anniversary of when Oscar Piastri infamously posted on social media, Alpine made a claim online that I was driving for them. This is not true. We even seen it in IndyCar, Alex Palou, when Chip Ganassi, Palou's coming back, and then Alex Palou, no, I'm going to McLaren. I got to ask, with Max Verstappen, Red Bull, if there's no improvement, if there's continued struggle, could we see something like that where Max Verstappen either finds a deal with Mercedes and they buy out the contract, or they find some loophole and he's gone?
I don't like to put out any possibility of anything happening, especially at this point in the season. If you hear some of the more colorful journalists out there talk about how Max Verstappen and Toto Wolff apparently met somewhere during the last little bit of break that we got for 3 weeks, you could listen to that kind of noise, but if I had to lean towards what my instincts are to say that I think Red Bull is going to keep Max Verstappen through 2026, but after that, all bets are off, and honestly, his services might be contracted for 2026 or 2027 onward before this season even ends. So I think if Red Bull wants to put together a solid effort to make sure that Max Verstappen is comfortable and they make sure they keep him, which they were unable to do with Sebastian Vettel in the past, I think that it would behoove them to really dig in towards the end of this season, or at least show him that they have made significant headway on the new rules package that'll debut next season that will be practically a completely different car from what we see on the track today. But at the end of the day, I just think that there's kind of too many balls up in the air over at Red Bull right now, to be honest with you, that I don't really have confidence that they're going to be able to pull through and, make a real stab at like getting Max in like the top 3 of the championship. I think that he could slip to like 3rd, 4th, maybe even 5th if this slide that they've been on continues. So it'll be really interesting to see how they come out of the summer break, of course, but right now, Max Verstappen's future is only cemented for next year, and even then, I still think that could be changed if Max Verstappen and his father get a little bit more bullish with their contract and their demands.
Yeah, Dan, I tend to agree with you on this one. I know this weekend, Max basically said to stop all the rumors that he's confirmed, that he is staying with Red Bull, since the exit clause in this contract, has passed now, and with the way things are, right, in his exit clause, where if he fell out of the top 4 in points, that he could, exercise that and then become a free agent immediately. Then a team like Mercedes could get him. But if Mercedes wanted Max, they would have to pay over $100 million, as has been reported, for an exit clause. And I wonder, is Max Verstappen really worth that price of paying over $100 million to have on your team? I guess, since he is a multi-time world champion, you could argue that he is, but is that something McLaren really wants to? I mean, not McLaren, Mercedes. Is this something that Mercedes wants to do at this point? I'm not really sure. But I'll take Max at his word with everything that he said. I believe he will be back in 2026 at this point. But if things don't go well, if they give him a car next year that's not driving well, and the Ford engine is just not that good, then I certainly think there could be some issues heading into 2027 and beyond. But I think next year is an extremely pivotal year for the Red Bull team and for Ford. They're going to need to give him a car that he can fight with, or otherwise Max is going to start looking elsewhere. And one other thing going to be looking at during this summer break to see if Mercedes will finally give George Russell that contract extension. I know saw some comments from him over the weekend saying that he doesn't want a long-term contract extension, that he just, he prefer, short-term to give him some more flexibility, I guess in case the situation at Mercedes goes as sour as it's gone for Red Bull right now. And then Kimi Antonelli, continuing to struggle as well. Maybe if he has some job security heading into next year, he'll start to perform a little bit better, as his season started off so strong, and now he's kind of, in a downward slide now.
It's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Max Verstappen to our Red Bull team during the summer break and how they respond with the remaining races. 2026, big year for everybody, for Red Bull. Really, they're going to have to set the tone for their future and hopefully keep Max around long term, because I think Max's key role in the success of Red Bull. With that said, let's go ahead to our shining moment.
Yes, that's right, Joe. It's time for our Grid One Shining Moment from this racing weekend. We had quite a few races to choose from, and let us know down in the chat whether you're watching live or on replay later. What's the one thing that stood out the most to you from this racing weekend, whether it was NASCAR at Iowa, F1 at the Hungarian, IMSA at Road America, or World Rally Championship at Rally Finland? And I believe we'll start with you, Tanner. What's your one shining moment?
Well, I could highlight the 32nd to 6th run by Bubba Wallace, or Carson Hocevar's spin to finish 8th at Iowa in the NASCAR Cup Series. I'm going to stay in Iowa, but go down to the NASCAR Xfinity Series, where Sam Mayer put up an incredible drive to get his second straight victory at Iowa Speedway, this time with a completely different team compared to last season when he was with JRM. This season, Sam Mayer, after 2 consecutive Championship 4 appearances with Junior Motorsports, moved over to the newly reformed Haas factory team and the number 41 car. And he has quietly put together an extremely solid 2025 Xfinity Series season where he has about a 10th place average finish, and he has 13 top 10s and I believe 11 top 5s through just 22 races. An impeccable record to speak. But this isn't the Sam Mayer that we saw win this race last year. The Sam Mayer that won this race last year said that he was, quote, pissed off that Cup Series owners and teams were not really looking at him, despite his multiple victories in the Xfinity Series and strong performances in that series, even at such a young age. I mean, the kid's only, I believe, 22 years old. But Sam Mayer took all of that criticism to heart of him being a bit more of a checkers and wreckers type of driver. And this season, he has responded in kind by being an extremely ruthlessly consistent driver that isn't as prone to mistakes. And he's really starting to mature and come into his own to the point that I think if he can continue to follow through with this season all the way to the end, getting consistent results and maybe logging in a couple of more victories, Cup teams really should start looking at him. Again, the kid's very young. He's starting to really show a lot of signs of maturity in his driving and his abilities, and he isn't falling out of races as often from overstepping or just getting caught up in other people's messes because he's ahead of the mess. So my one shining moment goes to Sam Mayer and the entire number 41 Haas factory team. They put in a fantastic showing in Iowa this week, and the rest of their season looks to be in great shape.
My shiny moment is going to be from Formula One. Gabriel Barrichello Sauber, top 10 performance, a second points finish. What an effort. This team, the Sauber team, it's well documented. This is really a small level team that last year they had 2 drivers. It just seemed like nothing was going right, especially pit stop this year. Nico Hülkenberg. Then you have a rookie, and first few races, okay, Nico Hülkenberg is getting some of the points, some of the best finishes. Now here we are, you got 2 top 10s. Granted, this is a track where passing is very hard. You still need the team to deliver good pit stops. You needed the team to bring a fast car, great setup, and you needed a driver to deliver. He finished ahead of Max Verstappen. Say what you say about Max Verstappen, when you could beat him, that's a statement, in my opinion. And this is a track where he got it done. Sauber, what a string of few races with the podium finish with Nico. Now this, I think it's starting to maybe gel together and maybe show signs of improvement. And then rest of the summer break, they continue that momentum. They could be looking good for double point finishes before you know it. And when they become Audi, they might be in a solid spot. So that's going to be my shining moment.
Yeah, I actually have 2 shining moments. First one from NASCAR at Iowa. Got to give a call to Bubba Wallace, from a drive of perseverance today. And what he was able to do today, just shows that he's riding on a high wave of confidence after winning the Brickyard 400. Because as we all know, got into the wall, suffered right side damage, had to come get repairs down pit road, 2 laps down, end up getting, the free pass twice. And in the final stage, he restarted 32nd, last car in the lead lap. And during that last green flag run, he drove all the way up from 32nd to 6th place, which is, just remarkable, being able to, drive all the way up through the field at that on a long green run. He absolutely had a rocket there. And if there was 1 or 2 more restarts with the speed that he had, I wonder if he could have potentially had anything for some of the front runners there. But still, great drive from Bubba there, being able to come from deep in the pack and get all the way up in the top 10, almost a top 5 finish. Great. The number 23 team is definitely right on a high as we head towards the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. And my second shining moment, it comes from a race that literally just ended moments ago while I was finishing up my F1 answer. Got to give a call to Hickory Motor Speedway and the car store for being able to, to ride out the weather and still put on a great show of racing tonight, for the Cars Throwback Classic race weekend. And in the end of the pro late model race, really exciting finish, beating and banging. It was between Spencer Davis and Luke Baldwin. Nice photo finish, some good hard, clean racing there. And, it really shows that if you just wait, you get what you want. And I think that it was totally worth the wait, all the hours of nonstop rain. Now the track is dry, crowds there enjoying some nice racing. Yeah, got to give a call to Carsto and Hickory Motor Speedway for waiting it out and working hard to make sure this event happened. And kudos to Spencer Davis and Luke Baldwin for giving us something to enjoy on this late Sunday night on the East Coast.
Late Sunday night. I know tomorrow, Monday evening, Grid Encore. We're going to have special guest host Matthew on the air, plus Brandon, for a Motor Monday recapping the Xfinity Series, ARCA Series, all the races that occurred. Grid Tonight. We'll be following all the news to report Wednesday and Grid Tonight. Then we got special coverage of the Grand Prix of Portland. Nicole Fry from Fans and Focus Media and myself will be at the track. We'll be having track updates Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Be sure to tune in Sunday for our pre-race show. Very excited weekend for everyone here at the Grid Network. And, of course, looking forward to seeing if Alex Palou can clinch his 4th IndyCar Series championship. Once again, a big thank you to our Patreon investors, Colin, Michelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew for investing in the Grid Network each and every month. Without their support, and of course, everyone that's watching, subscribing, hitting the bell icon, watching our programs, we thank you for doing so. For Tanner and Kobe, I'm Joe. Thank you for watching today's program. We'll see you next time.